welcome to another broadcast of the Lawrence Report. On tonight's broadcast, we will be discussing episode 7 of Lawmen, Bass Reeves. This episode right here was actually the shortest episode that we've seen thus far of the series. It was only 30 minutes, so my guess is that maybe when it comes to episode 8, which is the final episode of the season, that we're going to go back to at least 40 minutes to an hour long, that is basically what we've been having. So I'm assuming they're setting up for this big bad showdown that we're about to see between Bass Reeves and the one and only Esau, right? So the episode opens up with Bass Reeves basically about to get arrested, but as we're watching this episode, we're like, what is he about to get arrested for? It turns out that Bass allegedly, or I guess you could say accidentally, shot this cook, right? So at the same time, while Bass is getting ready to go through this procedure, these thoughts of Esau is running across his head. You know how Esau has called him, a killer just like him. He's said that, him and Bass Reeves are the same type people. He said that, this badge comes with a lot of weight. He also mentioned the thing about cinco peso when it comes to what his badge is made out of versus what Bass's badge is made out of, right? He talks about the weight that the badge holds. And all those things, he even says, Bass, you're a wolf like me. Like, I know a monster when I see one. So all of these things right here are just constantly playing in Bass Reeves' head. I mean, you ever had a situation where something just happened to you and, you just kept replaying it in your head over and over again? That's exactly what Bass is doing. And if I could say so myself, it's kind of like Esau is basically living rent-free inside of Bass' head, unfortunately, because Bass is completely tormenting himself about, Mr. Cinco Peso, the Sundown situation, Mr. Sundown. So all those things right there are just constantly torturing Bass in his head. So then we get like a time jump, something that happened 6 weeks prior to Bass potentially getting arrested. Judge Parker is actually over at Bass Reeves' family house, and they're having dinner. And so while Judge Parker and his wife comes over to dinner, Bass is, mentally completely out of it. He's still thinking about everything that Esau has said to him. And Judge Parker says something to him, and Bass eventually comes around. But I think even Judge Parker notices that for Bass that he's not mentally there right there, and he's not mentally here right now. And it may be time for Bass just to take a little bit of a step back from the badge. Judge Parker, he does give Bass a much lighter assignment. So Billy Crow ends up hiring a cook for him and Bass, while they're traveling on the road, capturing these bad guys. And they are on the lookout, they're searching for this woman by the name of Moody O'Neill, who killed someone, right? So as they're traveling throughout the territory, Bass believes that the cook called him a monster, right? Apparently Bass is overhearing things. And Bass asks the cook, "What'd you say to me?" And the cook says nothing. Again, the word monster came from Esau, aka Mr. Sundown, when he said in previous episodes that, hey, I know a monster when I see one. So again, Bass is still having these Esau images in his head that just keep playing over and over and over. So Billy Crow and Bass, and the cook, they end up capturing Moody O'Neill. And, the crazy part is, after capturing Moody O'Neill, she ends up escaping. Basically, the cook pretty much helped her escape. And Bass, he wakes up and he realizes this, and he talks to the cook like, "Did you see it?" He's basically like, "Yeah, I kind of, insinuating helped her, escape on her own." Of course, Bass at this point in time is highly upset. So he's going back and forth with the cook. And the cook calls him, he's like, "Well, you're nobody but a slave catcher. You're Judge Parker's mascot." And of course, Bass Reeves is upset when he hears that the cook would basically diss him like this right here, like that, right? Because Bass takes his job serious. But I feel like we've heard another person of color before say that that's all Bass is, right? And when Bass hears these words right here, he's highly upset, very angry. And Bass believes that, the cook is about to reach for his gun. But again, while reaching for the gun, Bass is having these flashbacks of what Esau has said to him. So while they're beefing, basically, the cook, he ends up reaching for the gun. And Bass Reeves is still having these flashbacks of what Esau has said to him, And, while the cook is reaching for the gun, Bass ends up shooting the cook, which turns out to be bad news. So now Bass has to do the unthinkable, right? He has to go to Judge Parker and tell him the details about how he unfortunately killed this cook. And now Bass has to see what's going on with this trial. But, while he's facing Judge Parker face to face, they share these stories. And Judge Parker talks about his upbringing and it's some of the things that he wanted to do for his father, right? And he also talked to Bass about, are you gold or are you pyrite, right? Basically saying, are you the real deal Holyfield, or can you not handle this job that I've given you? And Bass is, without a doubt, telling him his side of things too, telling him the story that, yeah, I am the real deal. I have a story to share with you as well about my upbringing, who I am as a man, but I just want to let you know, Judge Parker, if I go on trial, you best believe I ain't gonna be the only one sitting in that jailhouse, right? It's gonna be me and you sitting on this bench together, hand in hand, right? Because we both have done some things that we may not have been proud of, but yeah, it's gonna be me and you, buddy. We're going to jail together. And while they're sharing these stories as men to men, Judge Parker kind of has these tears in his eyes because he does care a lot about Bass. I really do believe that. But I also think that he hates how this situation right here went down. But at the same time, Judge Parker is not as innocent when it comes to his past and things that he's done as well. So they're both kind of tied together due to the weight of the badge, right? So Bass Reeves does end up going to trial. Judge Parker rules him not guilty, right? So that right there in itself is a sigh of relief. I think it was basically, he called it to be self-defense, right? So Bass Reeves' wife, Jenny, as the story moves on, Jenny ends up getting a visit from Esme. And Esme tells her that, I can't trust Edwin anymore. How can I trust Edwin when he can't even get his own home right, but he's trying to get other people's homes in order, right? That she doesn't really believe in the vision no more. And, she is basically cutting ties with Edwin. So she's pretty much hanging out at Bass Reeves' house, right? But at the same time, there's a crazy situation that comes. This little girl, I think her name was Clementine, a little white girl that we've seen earlier, whenever Bass' daughter and I can't forget the little boy's name, but they got into a little argument with this white girl at the fair. The little girl comes up to Bass Reeves' residence and she asks, is Bass home? And Jeannie corrects her and says, Mr. Reeves. Make sure we get that right, Mr. Reeves. She corrects her. And then she asks about Bass' daughter. And then all of a sudden, the little girl says, I have to go. And then, Bass' wife, Jenny, ends up calling her daughter downstairs, like, who was the little girl? Like, what's going on with this right here? And also in this episode, we see, the kids in SMA, they're all at this dinner table. And they look out the window. It's like a burning cross. Like there's a figure that's on like this burning cross. Of course, that right there is scary in itself, and that is crazy and hard to believe, but it was really real. So I believe that basically, I'm pretty sure that it was that little girl's brother who put that cross basically on Bass Reeves' family land, basically. So now, towards the end of the episode, Bass is, finally fed up. He's like, you know what? I cannot let this continue to eat me up inside. I have to go after Mr. Sundown, aka Esau, aka Mr. Cinco Peso himself. He tells Jenny this, he even tells Jenny about the story of the boy, Curtis. He's like, Curtis was like a son to me. And, it's haunting Bass that he has not figured out. Well, he does know who Mr. Sundown is, but now, it's up to him, Billy Crow, and Cheryl Lynn to go finally take down this big bad villain once and for all. So now we are one episode left of the conclusion of season 1 of Bass Reeves. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to get a season 2. David Oyelowo has been killing this thing right here in this role as Bass Reeves. He's also been doing a lot of projects. He has a lot of projects I see this coming out next year as well, but best believe we are going to get a season 2 of Bass Reeves. There's a lot of storytelling left to be told of this iconic Western hero that I'm excited to see. So yeah, the showdown is coming, episode 8. If y'all have been watching this right here, please comment below. I would like to know your comments about this series right here, or your thoughts, I guess I should say, about this series right here. And as always, thank you for tuning in to The Lawrence Report.